Welcome back to another humble running backyard session here. I've got a lot of topics to cover today. I will do my traditional Q&A at the end of this session here, but I'll go through a little table of contents here in case you want to know what's on the way. First, I'm going to give a little training log update on my recent running, recent training, races that perhaps I didn't jump into, and maybe upcoming races. That's going to lead me into a little bit of discussion of potential backyard ultra shoe picks, hint hint. Also, I have some road shoes in for test here. As you can see in front of me, I typically do most of my running on the trail. Most of my reviews on the channel, of course, is covering trail running, shoes, gear, and apparel, but I do like to get out for some road miles, and especially when I want to have those flat miles out there. When I go up in the foothills, I tend to have to always go up and down. Sometimes I want to get that aerobic work in, keep it nice and steady and flat, and that's when I do tend to get out on the road. So have a couple models in front of me that I'm gonna perhaps do little mini reviews on over here with the Salomon shoe and the Glycerin Flex, also R.A.D UFO I will talk about, and some other models from LEMS, and of course the Speedland model here. Sad news that I will also talk about is the closing up shop of GOREWEAR. GOREWEAR, specifically these shorts right here, have been a favorite pick of mine. Quality apparel. Sad to see them closing up shop, but I will have a discount code for you later on, and we will talk about that as far as availability in the final months for GOREWEAR. Also, I'm going to talk about little bits of gear and tech that I have in for test. You've probably seen them in my recent videos. And of course, finally, a couple of Q&A questions related to a lot of the stuff that I'll be talking about throughout the video. So let's get into it right away. First, I'm gonna go over my little bit of a training log, training update, fitness and health update, I would say. I put chapters in all of my videos, so if you're not interested in my personal running, training, racing, it is going to lead into some backyard ultra shoe picks, but I will chapter that out for you. So if you want to skip this part, feel free to go ahead. I've had a rough little stretch here in the winter, kind of a 3 to 4 week period. I was working on my bathroom. This is where it all started. Tweaked my back a little. Probably the first time I did the video with the Ultra Glide 4, I was just kind of getting back into it. I think I almost took 5 to 7 full days off of running, kind of slowly worked my way back into it, but it was a good stretch where I could hardly move with that lower back being a real big problem for me. Then I did do a ski trip around my birthday time, 3 days of full skiing. I've lamented the lack of winter around Boise, so the legs were not in condition to go do serious skiing up at Tamarack and Brundage, a little bit further north in Idaho, where they did have good ski conditions. So basically wrecked my legs for 3 days straight on that ski trip, and before and after that, getting ready for the trip, coming back, being super sore, that kind of knocked me down for a while. Then I did have to make a quick trip out to New Jersey. My dad was dealing with some health issues with his heart. He's all good now, don't worry about that. He's on the mend. But cross-country travel, back and forth, sitting around in the hospital a lot, just like a lot of high-stress kind of situations. So with the back thing, with the ski trip thing, with the trip out to New Jersey thing, it's been a solid like 3.5 weeks, possibly even a month, where I've just been kind of out of sorts in terms of my regular training schedule and even my review schedule. I've been trying to keep my head above water and do some reviews as I can, but I kind of am on the backside of that now, really ramping up. So I did have a race on the calendar. I actually registered for the Wilson Creek 20 miler, talked about it in an earlier video. I raced that last year in the Norda 005. Also raced a 50K in previous years, but with all that stuff going on that I just talked about, I thought it was best not to really go into it. I was just come back from New Jersey a day or two before that race was supposed to happen, and I was just totally like zonked out. So I actually deferred it until next year, so hopefully I'll be on the starting line for either the 20 or 50K, and I'll have a better time getting through the early winter in 2027 that will be. So that's off the calendar, DNS there. My next race I'm scheduled for is the Backyard Ultra Banana Slug. It is a silver race for the Biggs Backyard Ultra Team World Championships in Biggs Backyard. So being that I have this big background of not being necessarily in shape, coming out of it now, I'm really going to ramp up my training in the next, I think the race is about 12 weeks away. So I've broken it into 3-month segments here. I'm in week 1 of the first month. I'm gonna do like a standard 3-week ramp up, recovery week kind of thing. I want to see how it goes for the first month. I haven't fully planned out a full 12-week block. I think it's best, given my current training situation, to do the 3 weeks. I'm going to try to hit like 80, 90, and 100 miles, and I'm not going to really hone in on crazy long runs. I'm going to move that to later in the other 2 blocks, but I want to just kind of like ramp up the mileage. I've been doing 2 runs a day, an hour each. I want to get into a little bit more threshold speed work, just generally build up the fitness here. And also getting to 80 miles is not too big of an issue for me, even coming off of a bit of lower mileage in the previous weeks. As I said, getting to 80 is not so bad as long as I put the time in and I can kind of like spread it out over maybe doubles in a day or just a long run, medium run, and then have a recovery week, and then I'll see how I feel after that, and then plan out my next 8 weeks leading into the Banana Slug Backyard Ultra. So with that race, I do have an opportunity to get on Team USA, Backyard Ultra, Team USA. That's official, right? I'm gonna give it my best shot. My Backyard Ultra times or distances, durations are nowhere near the level of some of the other competitors in that race. And of course, like Phil Gore, 190, like not even close, okay? So it is an extreme long shot for me to, get into the Team World Championships. It's kind of crazy for me to say that. It's an extreme long shot, but I have a 12-week block here and I'm feeling good at the moment, so I'm gonna give it my best shot. So let's talk a little bit about backyard shoes right now. Early shoe picks, what do I have in front of me? First, I've got the Altamesa 500 version 2. I'm gonna read a couple specs here. 4135, 10.3 ounces. Couple reviews, videos up with this one. First run with this one, and then I just recently released a couple of comparison videos, Q&A and on the run review, comparing it to the Ultra Glide 4. 4135 is kind of what I'm looking for, big protection for a backyard ultra. And this shoe is great because, again, 10.3 ounces in my US 10 here, and it has that spacious toe box. So backyard ultra, you want to keep the feet protected, and I want a comfortable toe box. I talked about perhaps I could go to a 9.5 in this shoe. I had a question in one of the videos, but I like the 10. I feel like North Face midfoots are always super secure, so in the realm of backyard ultra, I would want to have that extra space around the toe box, limit any potential of rubbing or blistering, at least in the toe area. So this is a top pick in that regard. What else do I got on my list here? Of course, Tecton X3, have that hidden under here. This is the shoe that I wore at the If You're Not First, You're Last Backyard Ultra bronze event that I did one. I should have brought my bronze coin out here. But this is the shoe I wore, and it is, let's see, we're talking 40-35 here, similarly stacked to that shoe, but 9.7 ounces, so more than a ½ ounce lighter. Incredibly, again, can't top the Tecton X3 in a lot of regards. When this shoe came out, I thought the width was one of the super wide platforms out there, and it still is, but compared to this Altamesa 500 here, you could kind of see this is really trumping a lot of the stuff that's out there on the market right now. So this makes this shoe seem appealing as having a similar stack, but not quite a super wide platform. Also, in that event I was running, that was a summer event. It was like 90, 100, crazy dusty dry trails, and I had worn other shoes earlier in the event, and I was just getting dust and stuff in my shoes. I could feel the grit building up inside of my socks and stuff like that. And as soon as I switched to this, I didn't really plan to bring this as far as the gaiter factor, because people complain about the warmth of this knit gaiter, and being a 90 to 100 degrees, especially in that event, I was like, I don't know, but it kept all the dust and debris out of my feet, and I ended up running most of the back half of that event in this shoe, because just for keeping my feet healthy and in good condition. So this is another option based on experience. Another one I have here, of course, the Mount to Coast H1. Mount to Coast has a few options. They have the R1, of course, more of a road model. I have to check. I'm not sure if there's much on the road in the event that I will be running, but this one is 3630, 8.8 ounces. So 30 under the forefoot. I've run a lot in this shoe. Check out some of my full reviews, comparison video against the 005, of course, from Norda. But 30 may be a little thin for me under the forefoot, but having 8.8 ounces, extreme lightweight for this kind of comfortable feel. I have a US 10, talked about sizing up from a 9.5 to a 10 in this shoe here. Want that comfort in the toe box again in a long backyard ultra event. Perhaps I might start in this shoe, maybe gain a little bit of, or say, save a little bit of energy carrying only 8.8 ounces around compared to, say, 10.3 or even whatever it was, 9.7 with the Tecton X3 earlier in the event. Save some of that energy, keep a lighter weight shoe on, and then if it starts to feel thin, if it gets super long, it will get super long. Hopefully I'll be around for that portion of it, then maybe switch to something with a little bit more under the forefoot there. So top option here. Also, Mountain Coast C1, I just got an email today. It's coming out in April, so it should be out by the time of that event, and I will have a test pair on the way. So that was something I was kind of thinking about, if I'll have that shoe in time for the Backyard Ultra. That one is spec'd at 42.36, 9.2 ounces based on spec there. So it should be probably close in that range there, talking a lightweight shoe somewhere between the H1 and the X3 Altamesa 500. So very excited to try that one. It doesn't quite have this. I mean, not that this is a big trail outsole here, but it is a little bit something. That has a smoother road type outsole on the C1. I'll have to check the trail conditions as I get out there in the race. Another option, interesting. Again, this is coming in just this morning that I found out about. Tarkine, Australian brand, and this is the shoe that Phil Gore wore, the Autopilot, 119 hours, close to 800 kilometers, 1 hour short of 5 days running. So they have two models here. The Autopilot is a road / gravel shoe here, and that is the shoe. Phil Gore green and yellow special edition. I spent a year out in Australia back in the day, not running, I was surfing in those days. So green and yellow Australian colors there. Love that look. Pink outsole, looks great. They also have a shoe called the Tarkine Giants, and that is a trail model. So that might be a bit much for a Backyard Ultra. I will have both of those shoes in for test, hopefully soon, so I can get some miles in and decide. I mean, if Phil Gore can run them for 119, I think they'll be okay for me. But interestingly about that Giants shoe there, they do have an outsole shape-wise and kind of lug-wise, looks similar to some of the Kalos models that I've run in. So be very interested. They have some pictures on their website of what looks to be UTMB-esque terrain in the background there. So curious to try that trail model. But right now, in the context of the Backyard Ultra, definitely looking at that Autopilot model as a potential option. Okay, moving on from Backyard Ultra down to the road. I've been mixing in some road miles as I've talked about ramping up my mileage, getting to 80 miles this week. Kind of been doing a little bit of running on the treadmill in the morning just to like get going. And then in the afternoon, I do a little run, mixing in some flat stuff, road stuff. I've got the Aero Glide 4 here in for test. I've got 10 miles in this shoe so far. I did a quick little feel out on the treadmill, followed by another 7 or 8 mile run on the road. Talk about the stack height here, 41.33 millimeter. We're gonna talk about stack heights later on in my Q&A, especially with the Ultra Glide 4. So I will say that I did measure and confirm 40 millimeters at the heel. So they spec 41, I did confirm 40. So that puts me at 40.32 here. US 9.5, 9.2 ounces. They're calling the foam here OptiFoam 2. I got out on the run in this and it felt very responsive. The 8 mil drop, it's definitely noticeable. You feel like you're kind of on that road forward lean. Felt like a very quick shoe. I was surprised. I went back, emailed my contact at Salomon right away because I had run and reviewed the Aero Glide 3 gravel version. Check out my test run with that one and the Hoka Mafate X. But that shoe felt very soft underfoot. The foam, I was harping on that in the video, and even in comments afterwards, I would talk about how it was not necessarily the most stable foam underfoot. It felt super soft, super bouncy, and it is labeled Energy Foam Evo on this one. So I went back right away. I said, is this the same foam? Because this feels quite a bit. It's not a firm shoe, of course. It's not a firm midsole foam, of course. You've got that beaded TPU here, but it just felt so much more responsive, less kind of loose, soft, and squishy underfoot that I remember from the Aero Glide 3 Gravel. This one is labeled OptiFoam 2, so Energy Foam Evo there on my gravel model version 3. So I asked, is this the same foam? Did they change the formulation? What's going on? I was assured that it is the exact same midsole, which is pretty interesting to me because they feel so different underfoot. I'm not sure. I did measure out the platform and it is a little bit narrower here with this. Maybe the outsole plays a factor in it too, but I think it was a little bit wider with the Gravel 3. Not so much wider though, but it could also come down to the upper. I had a lot of issues with the Aero Glide 3 Gravel upper. I did not like that tongue at all. Similar setup to the Ultra Glide version 1 here. It had this kind of loose, gusseted kind of thing here. This has a regular, road style tongue here. It's integrated in here, non-gusseted. You just have a little pad up here, but it holds the foot really well. You can see this little tail swoop design here. It's not necessarily an aesthetic thing, although I think it does look kind of cool. This is a design element because they essentially have a one-piece upper here and they just sew it together back here, and I think enables them to use less materials in the construction of this upper and also avoid having any seaming or bumps in the back of the heel. So that's not something I typically notice in any shoe, but I would say it is definitely a comfortable shoe here. And again, on the run feels so much more responsive and not as loose underfoot as the Aero Glide 3 Gravel. It is very striking. You do have that kind of road style toe box here where it tapers in over there. I had issues. I felt like the gravel version was definitely looser. I have this one also in a 9.5. I had the gravel version in a 9.5. That's why I went with the same one here. It's definitely a tighter road fit here, but I don't have the issues around the pinky toe, surprisingly, in this model that I did with the gravel. I just felt like my foot was moving all over in the place with that gravel version, and it is not in here. So perhaps it is the effect of this tighter upper here, just holding the foot well. Again, surprisingly, without any irritation in a US 9.5, that is making the shoe just feel more responsive and less soft, noticeably soft as it was with that gravel. So interested to put more miles in this one. Also, Aero Glide 4 Gravel will be on the way. They have that interesting lacing system there that Dan Green demonstrated to me. I am curious to see what that one feels like. Thought I heard a squirrel back there. I'm curious to see what that one feels like in relation to the version 3 Gravel and also this one. Also, I'm a little curious about sizing. I have to double check. Maybe I'll ask them, should I go with the 10 or should I go with the 9.5 here? Because based on the version 3, I would not want to go to a 10 in version 4 based on the gravel version because it was just too loose. But this one is so well held, I would say if version 4 gravel is similar to this version 4 road, I would probably go with a 10, but I will update you as that goes on, and I do get my test pair in the future. Next little mini road review here. We've got the Brooks Glycerin Flex. Stack height here is listed at 3630, measured 35 at the heel, so right on target here. This is a 6 mil drop, unlike the Salomon here with the 8 mil drop. I've got 22 miles in this shoe thus far. I picked this one up at TRE, so a little bit more time to test out this one. Of course, Glycerin Flex. If you've watched YouTube running reviews or have these accounts on your Instagram that you follow, you've seen this before. It is very interesting. Do you remember the Brooks Pure Connect Pure Grit models? It is along those lines with more cushion underfoot, 3630. I've raced my first half marathon ever in the Brooks Pure Connect for some strange reason. I don't know why. I just liked how that shoe felt underfoot, so I was super curious about this one. And on the run, I would say it feels really nice. I can get going pretty quick without realizing it in this shoe. I think the landing point, the flex here, it just feels so good. It just adapts more so than a regular shoe instead of feeling, some shoes can feel a little bit slappy or something. That flex really works on ground contact on the lateral side for me. I love the feel of cushion underfoot. It's not a super soft shoe, I would say. It's kind of like a medium density foam here. And again, with all that flex underfoot, I don't think you could really go too soft with this midsole foam here. So they did a good job here meeting in the middle. You could kind of see on this side, there's no flex groove. So you have all this stuff on the outside for landing, but you do have a solid kind of heel landing. So if you're a heel striker or possibly running downhill, you're not going to get that kind of loose, flexy feel if you're landing on the heel. And also, as you go through your ground strike, you'll have a little bit more support on this side. So it's not completely loose underfoot. One issue that I do have with this shoe is as I was running in it, I noticed some kind of edge irritation on the inside of the ball of my foot and also the side of my big toe here. It just seemed like these two pods, right? I don't know what you would call these, flex pods or whatever. It just seems like they're at an angle towards the foot. Difficult to explain when you're standing in the shoe. You know, you want to feel like the shoe is underneath your foot and kind of flat, I would say. An issue that I have, and this happens with some topo shoes, some wider toe box shoes that are a little too wide, is that the midsole could kind of bend on the inside and rub the side of at least my foot. I don't know if this happens to others, but when I step in this shoe, even immediately, it just feels like these two are at a little bit of an angle towards my foot, and I could feel it rubbing not on the bottom, but kind of on the bottom edge of my foot. And towards the end of at least two of my runs in this shoe, I started getting some irritation from that. And I just think they could do a better job of maybe flattening it out, or I know they want to have the flex in. And again, I talked about it's really nice on landing, but I think it would be best if they could kind of flatten out this section here so it doesn't cant inwards toward your foot. I was kind of feeling around inside the shoe when I came back because it was really giving me some irritation. Pulled out the insole, I put my hand in there and I could feel the impressions of my foot, especially around my toe, the depressions from where my toes were on this insole. And then I noticed it's a weird kind of foam here. It's almost like a memory foam. It's some type of ortholite material here, but it seems to kind of hold its squish a little bit more, like seriously almost like a memory foam. So that certainly does not help. After my last run, the irritation got kind of bad, so I was almost gonna be like, I'm not gonna run in this shoe anymore because I can't risk getting all these blisters and stuff. I think it could be the insole. Again, I feel the tilt of those pods, but the insole probably plays a factor in kind of having your foot squish in and then having it wrap on the side of your toe. In my case, on the side of my big toe and the ball of my foot there on the inside, it just kind of squishes in there, and then as it's on the edge, it's giving that friction there. So I'm gonna try this shoe. I'm gonna swap out this insole and we'll see if that helps. So more to come on this one, but little mini road review. Otherwise, I like this shoe. It feels great. The color looks pretty crazy here. I like the translucent SDNA midsole here. Quick shoe on the run, very versatile. If they could just like fix that, or if I could maybe mitigate that with a different insole, I would love to keep putting the miles in this shoe. Let's see, other road shoes here. Got a couple of models from LEMS. LEMS, these are their first road models. They're breaking into the road running market. They have some hiking shoes and just, you know, casual use shoes. They definitely go with a wider toe box across their lineup. That's one of their things. We got the LEMS R.A.D Maker here. This one has a 5mm drop. Got the R.A.D Ultra Glide here. This is a 0-drop shoe. These are early samples right here, actually. They are tweaking a little bit of the production model, so I have given them some feedback on what I think. The 5mm drop, I was getting a little pressure under the middle of my foot just because the natural toe box, and it is a firmish foam. I know even before I started running it, they said they were gonna soften up the foam a little bit, possibly go to one of their cork insoles. So I will be comparing the production model with this model I have tested right here. Ultralight here. This one's 0-drop, so based on feeling a little pressure in some of my test runs under the ball of my foot in that 5mm drop version, I was kind of worried that I was gonna feel the same thing, especially this one being 0-drop, but this one was much more comfortable for me. So I actually like this one a lot more on the run. It feels like it was more supportive under the middle of the foot, and I guess with the same or similar kind of firmer foam, I was not getting as much pressure without the 5mm drop on the ball of my foot. It just felt a little bit more balanced in this shoe. I pretty much love everything about this shoe. Gave my feedback to LEMS. I always say, maybe don't change this one. That's my feedback I gave to them. A little firmer ride, wide natural toe box here. I think that's gonna be good with their consumer base. 5mm drop could perhaps be softened up a little bit in terms of the midsole. Then you'd have kind of a good 1-2 punch there with a more standard 5mm drop. Again, same wide natural toe box there, a little softer underfoot. And for those that are, you know, serious into the natural running kind of thing, want that real, not barefoot feel, but flatter feel underfoot with, again, I have to mention a little bit good arch support in this shoe, both of these shoes, in fact. Then you would have the zero drop model here. So that would be a solid entry, I believe, for LEMS. We'll see what they ultimately end up at. Another shoe I've got here, R.A.D UFO. This one's listed at 42.36, 9.4 ounces in my US 10 here. Check out my review on this one. This is the ones I did out in New Jersey. This is a crazy looking shoe, I have to admit. I was not sold on this one. Even when I got it, I was like, wow, this feels crazy underfoot. It's so soft, it's so wide, but on the run, I have to say, you've probably seen this all over Instagram, all over the reviews, all this kind of stuff. The hype is real on this one. This is a legitimate, fun shoe to run in. That foam feels great, and check out my full review. I talked about how this platform underfoot really makes it a pretty stable shoe, and despite the softness, it just feels great on the run. I can't wait to put more road miles in this one, especially as I'm getting into those 90 and 100 mile weeks, even workout type stuff, endurance runs, steady state runs, even tempo runs, faster running. Maybe not necessarily speed workouts, but those kind of extended up tempo running, I think it would feel great in this shoe. So R.A.D UFO here, last road shoe here, and this is probably not the newest one, RX FPY from Speedland. This is 40.33 spec. I measured it at 41 at the heel. Again, I'm giving my measured specs here, measured at the heel, because I'm gonna talk about that later in the Q&A, how I do that and why it's important. 40, 33, 41, 34 measured, 9.3 ounces, US 9.5 here. You could probably see a little something interesting here. This model has a single BOA. I have tested the TAM models. I also have the GSBLK in for test. This is their normal kind of GS setup here, where you have a dual BOA connected to this bottom section, and then you have the single BOA, which is really pulling this upper section over the top of the foot. This one only has one, and I talk about a lot of times in my review, I like to keep my forefoot a little bit looser, a little bit more spacious. I don't like to be squeezed around this area, but I do like my ankle super tight. I like to have the collar really tight over the top of the foot. I want that heel locked into the bottom of the shoe and no movement at all in that area. I find that hard with the single BOA here. With one single BOA attached to all three of these straps, I could not tighten this top one enough without really squeezing the bottom of the shoe more than was comfortable, and that's in fact making my foot numb and everything. So done a little mods here, actually cut the BOA here, retied it here. You have to do a little bit of experimentation to get that right. Not necessarily recommending it, but if you see Speedland Kevin, he does a little mess around Fridays where he does a little experimentation with all kinds of different gear. So don't think he'd be too upset with me doing this. But I added some laces. I have to trim these here. I've been kind of experimenting, so I figured I didn't want to cut them just yet until I have the finalized setup here. I think just tuck them under here when I've been running. I could really loosely lace this bottom zone here. Really, essentially, I feel like I don't need any tension at all. The other shoe I have in the house, I don't have the lace in. I just have these things flopping loose because I feel like I just don't need it in the bottom section, at least for my foot shape in this US 9.5 here. If that works, I'm kind of testing which works better. If that works good, I may even cut those off. Sorry, but I do like the boa at the top here, so I could really twist this one down, dial this one down a lot tighter without it squeezing the bottom of my foot. So that's what I've got going on here. I don't know, Speedland, I have trouble with this. One of the reasons I'm looking forward to their upcoming model, we have the RX LDVL here, and that is a similar setup to the PDX model, which I have. Interestingly, I have this one in a 9, and the GS BLK and the RX FPY in a 9.5, and I somehow find that they fit similarly. This one's definitely lower to the ground than both of these models here, but in a US 9, I feel like foot space, toe box space is about the same in this one. Not sure what's going on with the sizing there, but here you've got the boa down here and the strap up top. I talked about, I really love this strap because again, I could wrench down this top strap, and then I find this is a better setup than the setup here. It's reverse of what I've got going on here, but I think this is actually better because I would like to have this boa away from the side of my foot here with the trail shoe, not on the road shoe, but with this one, sometimes I could feel this on the side of my foot. So if I was going to have a strap lace, a boa strap or lace boa setup, I would like to have the boa in the bottom here. So this is pretty much ideal because I don't really feel this one on my foot, and I can get that same dialed fit around the upper ankle. And the RX LDVL does have a similar setup to this, lower boa with the strap up top. That's gonna be, I guess, along the lines of the road shoe, but with more of a gravelly type outsole there. So really looking forward to that one. That could potentially be another backyard ultra shoe pick there. Okay, moving on to some bad news. GOREWEAR is closing up shop. It is true, the end of March, GOREWEAR will be no more. I have one of my favorite running shorts here. This is the GOREWEAR Ultimate 2-in-1 short here. I actually did do a little bit of a modification. I switched the liner. I've got a Saks liner in here. It's just kind of sewed it in on the edges. That has a 2-in-1. It's a bit of a longer tight there, and it is a little bit thicker. So better for, I would say, colder weather running, but a lot of these races I was doing was in the summer, so I felt it was just a little bit too thick, a little bit too warm. But this is, again, one of my favorite running shorts and probably the best integrated storage waistband of any short that I've ever run in. I've been running in the R.A.D LF2L, the 1-liter belt, but if you don't want to have a belt there, perhaps you're a pack guy, but in a long race you want to have that extra. Sometimes it's just easy to throw stuff around the waist. This is a high-waisted band here. I could put a ton of stuff in here and zero bounce at all as far as not putting giant water bottles. I think they show that you can put water bottles in here. I don't think that's the best idea, but you can put tons of gels, gloves, any little kind of accessories that are going in and out in the course of a 100-miler. This is one of my favorite shoes. Ultimate 2, I think I saw this for $60 on the site or something like that. So check out GOREWEAR.com. Of course, I reviewed the Concurve GORE-TEX jacket. That is on a deep discount right now. They also have 60% site-wide new spring 2026 stuff coming in, but they are going out of business, so it is on sale right away. They will be fulfilling orders through the end of day March 31st, and then they will officially close. GOREWEAR will still honor warranties after that. Shouldn't be worried about ordering something and having them disappearing. They're still actually producing their materials for other brands. They're just not going to have their own specific logoed brand. So check out GOREWEAR.com. Deep discounts. I do have a code for you. It is HUMBLE15, capital HUMBLE 15. That will give you an extra 15% off the sale item. So I was browsing myself. I'm gonna probably maybe do a little article or maybe even a video post once I really dig into see what are the best deals there. Really good stuff out there, really cheap. If you talk about, say, 60% off plus the Humble 15 discount, really great stuff from GOREWEAR. I would say if you're a fan of GOREWEAR or if you want to maybe try it out even at deep discount, now is the time. Next bit here, what I have in for test, I've got, of course, the StridePod 5.0. Dual pods here. This is the charger here, which is super cool. They had a charger in the previous models that was similar to the little cradle that went on your shoe, but it had the charger with a little USB port. This one is great because you can stick two on at the same time and they're just like very easy. Stick it on the key ring, USB-C right in here. Pretty cool feature here. They just posted an update. You can tap and check on the battery status. Let's test that. I didn't find that. There you go, green. So on the run, you could do a little double tap before you head out. Oh, there we go, green. Wasn't working a little before. I wasn't sure if I had to do a firmware update or what, but it does seem to be working. They have green, orange, and red, so you can check the battery level before you head out the door. Something interesting, I've talked about this, you've probably seen it in my videos. I had another video where I was doing some quick hill testing in this one. I'm doing a more detailed follow-up. I'm kind of just using it right now and getting a feel for it. It definitely does seem to be more accurate. The pods are smaller than version 4 and of course all the previous versions. So if you have an older version of Stride, now would probably be the time to upgrade because you're getting the enhanced capabilities of this one. Cool little charger, the little tap to check. The smaller size is definitely a big thing. I mean, a lot of times it's a tight squeeze. If you look at my R.A.D shoe here, shoes with a little tight lace throat, any little bit with the cradle and having the smaller pod does help. Sometimes I have a hard time with tighter lace throats like that, getting my Stride Pod version 4 in there. If you do have version 4, I would say it's not necessarily an upgrade that you need. Pretty expensive here to get 2 new ones going from 4 to 5. But again, if you have one of those older ones and perhaps the battery's naturally degraded, might be a good time to upgrade. Another one here, I've got the Amazfit Helio strap here. I picked this up at TRE. I have an Aura ring. I use that to track resting heart rate, HRV. I was wearing it at night, and the battery, I think I have one of the original versions, degraded so much that I was having to charge it every day. So thinking about getting a Whoop, kind of came across them at TRE and sat down with them, chatted a little bit. They showed me all the features, and I've been using this ever since. I've just been wearing it, trying to get a feel for it. Talked about my training being not ideal over the past month, even coming out of TRE, which was the beginning of December. Kind of trying to see where my levels in terms of heart rate variability, resting heart rate kind of level out once I get into normal training before I do a full review on this one. But it's kind of like a Whoop. I was thinking of getting a Whoop, but Whoop has the subscription model. It's very expensive. The stuff that I'm interested in, the HRV, the resting heart rate, again, it seems to be pretty accurate in this one relative to the Aura ring that I have. The numbers are slightly higher, but again, my training has been off the past month or two, so I'm kind of seeing it level out. It's been interesting as I've been really focused, especially this week. It's Friday now. Really, the beginning of this week is when I got serious, 12 weeks before the Backyard Ultra, and I've noticed that my resting heart rate has gone gradually down little by little, and my heart rate variability has gradually gone up throughout the week. There was a couple times when I was back in New Jersey, I went out, had a little bit too much to drink one night, and you could see the clear spikes, the effect of alcohol in your system, and that was with the Helio strap here. So something I will be monitoring with this. I also have a watch that they gave me. This is a pretty fully featured smartwatch, the T-Rex 3 Pro. It's not obviously Garmin, Suunto, Coros. They do sponsor Ruth Croft and I believe Rod Farvard, so that's pretty serious. Ruth Croft was wearing this watch when she won UTMB. That's enough for me to give it a shot. Watches are a little bit more difficult to test. You have to spend more time. It's very tricky to kind of like figure out the interfaces of a watch if I've been using another brand, Garmin, for so long. So this one I have not really dug into yet. I'm gonna wait. Again, as I get into more structured training, I'm gonna start working this one in. So I'll have a review of this one, but more so the Helio strap going forward. Last couple things here, UltrAspire, Zygos. Saw this in my last review there. Zygos 6, Zygos 5 has been my preferred pack for 100 milers and the like. Excited to have this 6 in for test. A little bit different setup here. You've got kind of a setup here that is similar to some of the features that I liked with the big Bronco vest. How you have the kind of structured pockets moving along from the front panel to the side of the body. I like that in the Bronco, but they still keep this big back panel here, the big zipper pocket from the Zygos 5. The pockets seem to be a little bit bigger in this model. I'm gonna do a full review. I've got a couple of runs in here, but not fully loaded up. As I get into more longer runs, longer training, do a full review on this one. Again, the pockets just seem bigger. This is definitely wider. It seems like a more substantial vest here. Dan Green wore this at Cocodona, so give you an idea of what you could look for here. Key features here. Quiver loops here. I have my 5 where I custom added my own things here that I had cut off of an old Salomon vest. They have them here, so this is great. I also have this Traverse pack here. This is a more of a adventure pack here. This is even higher capacity than this. Large giant pockets here. You have a bigger kind of panel. This is more of like a hiking, maybe super long distance, 200 miles. I don't know, but I haven't had a running vest quite this big yet. So perhaps winter adventures, maybe Nordic skiing, even, you know, light backcountry stuff where you don't, you know, not an avalanche risk or anything like that. Just need to carry some gear, maybe even just skiing on the resort could be a good option. So this is the Traverse from UltrAspire. Another one in for test. So let's round out this backyard session here with a little bit of question and answer here. I have a few interesting ones that I think are pertinent to how I test and review shoes. First one I've got here from RCPR75, and these are going to be related to primarily my testing of the Ultra Glide 4 and the Altamesa 500 V2. Stack is very misleading as not all brands state the total stack including insole, midsole, outsole, also shoe size. Always refer to Run Repeat, who do excellent reviews with detailed measurements. Would be helpful if there was a standard measurement rather than marketing BS. We had some discussion about the stack height of this Ultra Glide 4 here. I had originally talked about in my video, it is spec'd at 4135, and I did say that in my first video, but then I posted a couple things on Instagram where it is measured, I found, at 34 at the heel, so significantly lower than what I had talked about during my review. And again, that first run that I did in this one, straight out of the box, that's something I want to talk about primarily here. I have another comment here, KR Ellis-VR1IX. Do you think it's important to do your own measurements in detail before putting out first look videos? Would have been good to know some of this information in previous vids on the Ultra Glide. You owe it to the product, in parentheses, us. That's coming from my comparison video with the Ultra Glide and the North Face Altamesa here, where I did talk about the discrepancy in the reported stack height. First look videos, I try to take the shoes straight out of the box and have the experience of a buyer just taking them out and going on the first run and kind of feeling them out. Also factoring in there, I was under the kind of, I would say, mistaken assumption that it was similar in stack height to the other S-Lab Ultra Glide, because I did get the tech sheet and it does say that it is listed at 4135. 6 mil drop here, but it has 41 listed at the heel. Same exact spec stack height as the Ultra Glide here. So I really didn't have anything to kind of maybe tip me off or think that it would be any different. I just thought, well, this is the regular version. It doesn't has a different foam, different kind of upper setup. It's obviously cheaper, but it wasn't on top of mind that it would be too much different from what they're reporting. Again, this one's listed at 41. I did check this. I believe I got 40 or 41. It was right on target here. I went back, and as I was testing this one, I noticed it didn't feel quite the same. Again, this one is measured at 41. So when I was running in them side by side, I had to like double check. And then I did measure this one after I had done the first look video, and I measured 34 at the heel. So I get 34.28 compared to 41.35, which they had put in their technical sheet. So that is definitely a big difference, and I would say I apologize for that doing the first one. But again, those first look videos, I try to just get out there, and it's more about feel on the run. I don't do the stuff that Run Repeat does. I love Run Repeat, by the way. I have nothing against Run Repeat. They're obviously cutting a shoe in half, so I am obviously not going to do that. They take measurements with very precise instrumentation and all that. I think that's not possible for many of us to do, and I also don't think it's what I really want to do. So much of, especially when it comes to stack height and especially drop, the contouring of the shoe underfoot, how the midsole works in conjunction with the outsole, especially a shoe like this with this relief spear setup. Talked about the upper having a drastic effect between this road model and the Gravel 3 version for the trail/gravel, how it makes the midsole feel underfoot be so different. So of course, it's nice to have those exact measurements. In a perfect world, before every shoe came out, if Run Repeat would just cut every single shoe in half and have some kind of reference point on their scales of how everything measured up, yes, that would be good to have. But it's not really the be all end all in terms of how a shoe runs or feels or performs underfoot. So in my first look runs, I'll probably, going forward, at least I always weigh the shoe, because I primarily want to weigh them before I pick up any mud or dirt or absorb anything into the upper. So I always find it's important to weigh them, but I think it will be also important going forward to measure the stack height, double check the stack height. So I will do those two things going forward in my first look videos. Sorry about that if that caused you any issue, but again, a little bit lower here. I find it a little odd that Salomon lists it at 41 at the heel when it is in fact 34. That's not really close. Again, this one I found 1 mil off. I think this was 41 or whatever it was, and I did measure 40 or 40, 41. Very close on this shoe. S-Lab Ultra Glide version 1, within 1 millimeter. This one's just a little bit off. So again, I found it a little weird. Also, I measured the kind of platforms underfoot, and I find this one a touch wider over here, and even a little bit wider here than the S-Lab version. I'm not sure if that's by design, if that's just kind of a difference in manufacturing. Really not sure, but I had originally, I think, put up a picture where I had used the ground platform here because I had roughly looked at them. I'm like, oh, it's kind of the same. But then when I measured, it was just a touch. That's really not as much of a difference as the stack height difference though. Are you planning on testing, this one comes from Eglos, are you planning on testing the Altamesa on something other than flat gravel paths? It's winter. I try to get every shoe in the appropriate testing conditions. I talked about this shoe being potential backyard ultra shoe with this giant wide platform here. I feel like in highly technical terrain, it's not going to be ideal, and I think that's kind of noticeable. I think it's probably, you could handle it in that type of terrain. It would depend on the skill of the runner, and I certainly wanted to test it in that terrain. Again, I try to get the videos out in a timely fashion. I try to test them in appropriate terrain. I'll definitely put this shoe, being that I like it so much, I'm going to test it in a wider range of terrain, and as I do more comparison testing, maybe a fuller review or roundup where I answer questions about the shoe, something like that, I'll have more experience with it. But I do have sections of terrain in some of my videos. If you check them out, a lot of times that's snow and ice, little short ups and downs, rockiness. Sometimes I could kind of get a feel for it. Again, I have a lot of experience with the North Face model line, as well as a lot of other trail shoes. So a lot of the testing relies on experience. And again, it is winter, so a lot of technical terrain is a little harder to come by in these types of weather conditions. I do my best there. I have a couple more questions about the Kip Summit Max. Speaking of high cushion models here, do you think this model could work for bigger, more muscular runners, or would the foam possibly be a bit too soft or unstable? This has that wild ATPU foam here, and I think that is an open question. For bigger muscular runners, my response, put it up there, borderline. If you're a bigger runner, putting in more force into your shoes, if you're still looking for this soft type of shoe, I would say this is a better option than softer, kind of older version EVA foams, because those can be just like more squishy and unstable and less durable. So if you do want to maintain that soft feel as a bigger runner, I think this is a good one, because it's going to be still having that soft feel, probably be more durable, and less of that bottoming out that you might get, especially over time as you stack up more miles in one of those, say, older, softer EVA type midsoles. On the other hand, if you don't want that kind of soft feel, if you want the higher stack but you're not looking for the squishy feel, that's where it can be tricky, because you are getting, this shoe feels a little like dicey at times underfoot because it is so soft, it is so bouncy. So if you're a bigger runner and you don't want that bouncy feel, maybe look for something a little firmer. Even a shoe like the Altamesa here, this foam feels energetic, but in a definitely lot more stable way, and it has that wide platform I talked about that could be beneficial for bigger runners. I think I had one more here. Hello, would you say the Kip foam is softer than the Fuga EX330? Thanks. It definitely is. EX330 has a huge volume of foam in it, but it's more of a denser foam. You don't have the kind of movement underfoot that you get. Like this shoe bounces and you have to kind of feel out the stability of the foam as you're going. Feels, again, as I said, dicey, especially technical terrain, uneven terrain. The EX330 definitely feels more stable underfoot, at the same time having that deep level of cushion. It's just, I would say it's kind of similar in feel to the Dream Foam here of the 500, but with the upper that's more, I don't know, you don't have that super wide platform, especially around the middle of the foot here. It's a little slimmer in the heel. You're getting kind of the level of cushion and deepness of foam in the EX330 as you have in this shoe, with a more kind of technically oriented ride. Last shoe I had here, I had a little screenshot here. I was talking about the stack earlier. Posted something also again today. Studded winter shoes. Finally got a little snow the other day. You can see I'm in my backyard again with no gloves or anything on. So winter, where is it? Anyway, Icebug Myr BUGrip here, talking about stack height. I was on the run, went out on my first run there, and I didn't have the specs. It snowed and I was like, oh, I gotta get out. It's just snow. I don't have time to prepare everything, measure everything. Went out on the run and I guessed the stack height. I knew it was an 8 mil drop because I checked that on the website, and I guessed 34-26 millimeters on the run. Went home and measured it. I couldn't actually find a spec that they put on their website, and I don't have a technical sheet on this shoe, and it was 35 millimeter. So my guess on the run was within 1 millimeter of my actual measurement. That is me measuring everything from the surface of the ground to the bottom of the foot. So it's including these little bits of spikes here. I got 3.5 millimeter on the studs here, plus about 4 millimeter of outsole here. So again, as it relates to run repeat, they're doing midsole measurements. I don't know what they include in all their stuff there, but they do take measurements of the foam itself. In my process, I feel like it's more pertinent to feel everything that's under my foot and the ground. So again, I was 1 mil off, not knowing at all what this shoe was. And that's kind of what I do on the first look runs. I kind of feel it out. I feel like it's more important to kind of feel out the ride of the shoe than get worked up into exact numbers. Again, the Salomon was pretty far off there, so that may be a little bit of an exception there. Check out the Icebug review if you have a chance and you have colder weather than I'm having right at this particular moment. That's a wrap. Backyard, humble running, question and answer, chatting away here. Let me know if you have any more questions down in the comments. Any of these shoes, let me know if you want to hear about training log going forward. As I ramp up into this Backyard Ultra, I didn't talk about my extended race calendar just yet. I'm kind of zeroing in on getting fit, getting in shape, giving it my best shot at getting to bigs at that Backyard Ultra. So 12 weeks time for that. Probably have a Backyard Ultra shoe focused video at some point, and again, reviews of those Tarkine shoes and maybe some A/B testing as far as Backyard Ultra goes. If you're interested in my training or what I'm doing leading up to that, let me know if you'd like to see those kind of videos. I have, again, H-drop in for testing, the Helio strap, stuff like that. I want to really dial everything in as I head forward into the rest of the season beyond. That race is in April, so it won't necessarily be that hot, but good time to get started for the warmer summer months. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one. Again, I will see you back here or out on the trails or possibly on the road in one of these.